All right, good morning, happy Monday. Here we are back at it again. Wednesday should be entertaining because it's Halloween. I don't know if anybody's coming in Halloween costumes or what have you. I am not. I am not. Though my son, who's 4, has insisted that I be Robin because he's going to be Batman. So I get to be his sidekick. It's quite entertaining. But no, I will not be wearing that here on Wednesday. Thank you to those of you that are here. There seems to be a lot of empty seats today. It is what it is. I guess it's that time in the semester. Maybe you guys have midterms or something. You got 2 handouts today, and actually my talking today is going to be on the light side because I'm going to give you a lot of time to actually do work, and I think that's a good thing. Today I want to introduce assignment 105, which is your next assignment. This is the AutoCAD assignment. I'll go through it in detail in just a second. And the other thing that I've found, and I do this with my 136 students as well, is that when we get into kind of a technical drawing sort of scenario, in this case you're going to be drawing up the floor plans and the elevations for this cabin, it's better for me to let you work on an actual project that you're designing than for me to script it and give you something. So I could take the floor plan that you did last class and just make you draw elevations of it, but nobody seems very excited about that. It's very scripted. It's just do this, make it look like that. I think having you guys have a little more flexibility can make a great difference in what you're learning to do and how you're learning to do it. Today we'll spend time actually drawing the floor plan, and then going forward I'm going to try to teach you other things about AutoCAD. You know, one, how to make your drawings look good, how to use line weights, how to use blocks as reference objects and actually create a good looking drawing. I'll also talk about how do you pull elevations, how do you create elevations from your floor plan. I'll do a lecture on building elevations so that you have an understanding of what line weights are, why we would use them in an elevation, what various types of elevations are, etc. Eventually we'll get to the point where we'll do layout work, which is kind of the big thing that I think most AutoCAD's classes seem to miss, where we'll actually spend time doing layouts, working in viewports, understanding scale, and then ultimately creating a 24 by 36 sheet that you will plot. You will be working on your own cabin for all of these exercises. So if you're here and you're working, you have a lot of time in class to work on assignment 105. So I do this on purpose. You guys have midterms. You've got other projects going on right now. It's kind of the middle of the semester. Life is busy. So if you're here, you show up, you do the work, it shouldn't be too hard to get the end product out. And that's, like I said, on purpose. We will continue with this same cabin into SketchUp and ultimately into Photoshop as we go forward through the rest of the semester. So you'll spend a lot of time with this. If you find that you really don't like your AutoCAD cabin and you want to change it when we get into SketchUp, that's OK. You don't have to feel like you're stuck to it. This is a design evolution. If you find something really works better, go ahead and change it and evolve it from there. So today I want to introduce assignment 105 and talk through what I'm expecting you guys to do. And then in exercise 118, you're going to start your floor plans for this. And I say floor plans. Some of you will have just one floor plan because it'll be one story. Some of you will have 2 because you'll want it to be 2-story. That's entirely up to you. But you'll be drawing those today. And then we'll keep working with that same AutoCAD file for the next 3 or 4 classes. So I've gone ahead and I pulled up the digital version of the assignment 105. You guys can look at the paper version in front of you, but I'll talk through it on the digital version. Yes, this is an architectural design project. For those of you that are in industrial design, don't panic. It's OK. It's good for you to have to branch out and do something slightly that you're not comfortable with. Think of it as a very large object. It's the same thing. You can look at it the same way. The only difference is you can inhabit the inside of it. And that's OK. It's good for you to expand your minds a little bit. We will talk a lot about drawing, which is the important part. Even if you were drawing a small part, you would use the same strategies. Elevation is just a side view. Plan is essentially a top view with a section cut through it. So what you're going to be designing here is a small cabin, total of about 1,000 square feet. I don't want the 10,000 square foot mansion house. I want small. That's the point. You can spend a lot of detail on a small amount of space. You're going to be designing it for a married couple, husband and wife. They have no children, and they've requested that the cabin have 2 bedrooms so they can have one for themselves and one to have some guests come. It only needs to have 1 bathroom. And again, this is all written out here. They would like a living space with a fireplace and windows that, quote, capture the site. This is what clients love to do when they ask you for things as an architect. They say, I want to be able to capture the site. It's so beautiful. And it's your job to figure out what that means. So I'm playing the role of the client here, and I'm telling you what a client would tell you, and you have to interpret that. That's the point. They would like a kitchen that is open to the living space. They would like a dining space. And you notice that I give you square footages next to these. These are approximate, so it doesn't mean that you have to calculate out, oh, I need 150 square feet, so I'm going to do a dining room that's 10 feet by 15 feet, because that's exactly 150 square feet. If you did a dining room that's 12 feet by 15 feet, you can borrow some space. You know, my point is that these are approximate numbers. Doesn't mean it has to be exact. Maximum square footage needs to be less than 1,000 square feet. That is interior square footage. So if you would like to have an exterior patio or deck or something like that, that's OK. You can have that. It doesn't count towards your 1,000 square feet. If your building is 1,100 square feet, you're not going to fail this assignment. If it's 10,000 square feet, yeah, you kind of went overboard. Does that make sense? So we're trying to be approximate here. You start getting above 1,200, 1,300 square feet, you're too big. If you're a little bit smaller, that's OK too. You're going to move on into an evaluation of the site. And at the very bottom, I have 2 files that you're going to download. We'll skip down here. You can go ahead and click on that to download a zip file that contains the site information. We'll go through that in just a little bit. And we're going to perform an evaluation of the site today. In an ideal world, on a design project like this, you would get the privilege of going and visiting the site. And as much as I would love to take every one of you to Yosemite for the day, that's not quite in the cards. It's not in my budget, nor is it in our time constraints. So today we're going to virtually visit the site using pictures. The reason that I picked Yosemite for this particular project for all of you is it's fairly accessible online in terms of finding out information about Yosemite, seeing photos of Yosemite. It's pretty prevalent, so it's easy to find. If I picked a more obscure location, it would be a little bit harder for you guys to find information about it. So we will go through that site evaluation together in a little bit. Next thing, part 3 here. Oops, sorry. If I can select the right part of it. There we go. This is what you're starting today in exercise 118. That is the AutoCAD drawings of the floor plans of this building. I'm going to give you a site topography file. You'll open that file and you'll start drawing inside of that file. The contour lines are at 1-foot intervals, and this will make sense when I show you the file in a little bit. The site is 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet. Your building will be fairly small in this site. So it's a big site. You'll have a small building on it. And I want you to draw the floor plan of your cabin. We will talk a lot more about line weights to distinguish features in your cabin. And that's coming up. So today I'm more concentrating on you got to actually draw your cabin. We'll make it look good next class and in the classes thereafter. We'll eventually get to the part where you're going to be drawing elevations of your cabin. So ultimately, you'll have a floor plan, and you'll have 4 elevations of your cabin. That's part of the assignment, is to have the floor plan and those 4 elevations, north, south, east, and west. I'll give a whole lecture on elevations, so don't panic. We'll get to that when we get to it. Eventually, we will bring that floor plan and the elevations into a 24 by 36 layout. We'll use scale. We'll have it appropriately scaled. We'll take that PDF that we create from AutoCAD, we'll bring it into Illustrator, we'll do some collage work, some touch-up work, and I'll show you how to do that. And that will then be your final thing that you will turn in to me. In terms of output, this is a little bit different. There are 2 requirements for this, both of which are graded. So previously, every print that you've handed in to me hasn't been graded. It's just for my records. This one, you have to do 2 things. One, you post your 24 by 36 online so that I can see it online, a digital version of it. And 2, you're going to have to plot on the big wide format plotters, the big ones. You're going to have to plot a 24 by 36 inch sheet for me. The quality of the 24 by 36 inch sheet isn't being graded, but the fact that you were able to successfully plot it is. The reason that I put this in as a requirement is going forward, you guys in whether you're architectural students or you're industrial design students, you're going to have to be able to print boards. So you're in 121, or well, 121 doesn't really do it. If you're in 220 or you're in one of the higher end industrial design classes, you're going to have to do some kind of a board that represents your product or your design work in some way, and you're going to have to print it. I want all of you to have the trauma of printing now so that you don't experience that trauma down the road. The plotters inherently don't work, crash, somehow won't print, miss things on your prints, etc. You're going to learn all of that and how to plot in this class so that hopefully down the road it'll be real smooth. It probably won't be, but let's just hope that somehow it is really smooth. So you're going to have that experience in here. That is a graded part of this assignment. So you're going to have to do the print too. Okay, so I just don't want you to forget. If you come in here the day that it's due, on Monday the 19th, at 7:45, and expect to plot and have it work, like most of you do for the little 8.5 by 11s that you hand me, it won't work and you won't have it turned in on time. So this is the kind of thing that you need to do a couple days in advance. Make sure it works, make sure it doesn't crash, those kinds of things. Okay? Like I said, I will help you through it. I will walk through it. We'll talk about the plotter. We'll talk about how it works and all of that sort of thing going forward. So don't panic, but it's there. Okay, so I went ahead and I downloaded the zip file of site information. It's right here. I went ahead and I showed it in its folder, and then I right-clicked on it to extract the file, and I went to Extract All. That creates a file here, Building Site Assignment 105, and there are two files in this for our use. One is an AutoCAD DWG file, which we're going to work with in a little bit, and the other is a KMZ file for Assignment 105. Now, we used to have Google Earth on these computers, so you'd just be able to double-click it and it would open Google Earth. Unfortunately, they didn't install it anymore, nor do I think we have the license for Google Earth Pro, which is the online, or which is the downloadable version. However, Google has now decided that Google Earth can be free for everybody online. So if you go to google.com/earth, this is the Google Earth new interface. And once you're at google.com/earth, we're going to click the blue button in the middle that says Launch Google Earth. And it will load up some Google Earth stuff. There we go. And once it's loaded up, I want you guys to be able to load in the exact site. So I've given you that KMZ file or KML file, and we can find it. And I have to double check where it is. It's not that. Sorry, bear with me. Yes. OK, the three lines at the top, if you click on that, you can come down to something called My Places. And in My Places, you'll be able to import the KML file. If you're not seeing the KML file, you may have to go to your settings first, right here. And at the bottom of the settings, there's Enable KML File Import. Yours might be toggled off. You have to make sure that it's toggled on in order to do this. I'll click Save, and I'll go back up to my three lines there, go to My Places. And here we are under Import KML File. Hopefully you're seeing this. If you're not, I can come back and try to help you individually. Click on the Import KML File button and say Open File. And you're going to pick that. I know it says KMZ. It'll still work. Building Site A105. And I'll go ahead and click on Open. And when that opens, it will then load in data for our particular site. And it'll zoom in on that particular place. So once we have that, I'm going to back up just a little bit here. And I have a yellow pin that's inserted right where our building site is. It's very close to the Nature Center at Happy Isle. We're going to pretend like that Nature Center doesn't exist on our site, so you don't have to design around that. We're just picking it here. I picked some place that was fairly obvious in terms of getting yourself situated. So in terms of seeing what's around us, down here in the lower right corner, there's a button for 3D. And frequently this helps a little bit. So I've clicked on the button for 3D, and it's going to kind of zoom. Well, we have to go through. There we go. We're looking at through the mountain toward our building site here. We're down in this little valley. And so we'll get outside of the building, or the mountain. There we go. And now we're coming back around. This is Yosemite. It's in the valley portion of Yosemite. We've got steep cliffs on either side. Half Dome is up over here to the left right now. And we're kind of nestled down in this valley. The Merced River runs right along through here and right through our site. So there's a river portion to this particular site. if I zoom out a little bit and then continue my 3D voyage here, you get a little bit more sense of the surrounding mountains and or valleys. Right there is Half Dome, right below us. I'll switch back into 2D and zoom out a little bit. This is Yosemite Valley here that we're looking down on. There we go, looking out. This whole stretch in here is Yosemite Valley. This is Half Dome right here. And our site is nestled right down in here. Anybody been to Yosemite before? A few of you? Good. Anybody hike Half Dome before? That was fun, wasn't it? It was sore for like 4 days afterward. Couldn't walk. Anyway, if you ever want to go for a really cool hike, Half Dome is pretty spectacular. Anyway, so that's our building site. Let me switch back into 3D there. And it's going to continue navigating us around this particular site. So it's oriented. Our site is oriented. When you look at it, north is this direction. We're about to look north. Like that. So that's looking up north. So we're going to look across and see the North Dome and this side of the cliff face. We're looking across the valley, and we're nestled right down inside of this valley in there. It's a wooded portion, so there are some trees around where our building site is, and we have the mountains on either side. That means a couple things. One, in terms of sun, this is the site analysis part that I'm talking about. Part of it is just viewing the site and seeing what's around here. But the other part of this is thinking about what's happening on the site in terms of climate, etc. So we're not going to get a huge portion of light during the day because we're surrounded by these large cliffs on either side. So our light, our direct sun is going to be rather limited on this site. We're going to get it a little bit later in the day, and we're going to lose it a little bit earlier in the day as the sun starts to set. Furthermore, we're going to have some winds associated with this particular site. Generally, we're going to have up canyon winds in the mornings, and we're going to switch and have down canyon winds in the afternoons. So we're going to have winds coming roughly north-south on this site. Our view is primarily to the north. We would certainly see the mountains on either side, so high windows might be able to capture the peaks on either side. We're not going to have to worry too much about our heating and cooling problems in terms of solar heat gain. These are things that we would discuss further on in architecture school. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. Because we're in a mountainous setting, we're not going to have a lot of sun heat gains on our buildings. We're going to have to mechanically heat this building during the winter because there's going to be a bunch of snow. So there's not too much you can do about that in terms of awareness. Chances are you're not going to have air conditioning in the summer. You're going to have operable windows. So operable windows are going to allow some cooling to happen naturally, which is a good thing. So from here, you want to start thinking about what's happening in your building design. How do you want this building to look? We'll go ahead and pause this part of it, and I'm going to move over into the topography part of this. So if I open up AutoCAD, and again, I'm just using the basic AutoCAD 2019. I don't need to use the architectural version of AutoCAD, though you can if you want. They're roughly the same. There we go. And I'm going to go up, once it's loaded and up by the A in the upper left corner, I'm going to click the Open button. It's the folder, the file folder. And then I will navigate to, it was in my Downloads folder, I think. There we go. And there's my topography file, and I'll go ahead and click Open. This is going to pop up because I did create the topography file in Rhino, and then I converted it to an AutoCAD, so it's an AutoCAD thing that says, oh wait, it was written by another program. Just say continue, it's fine. And there we go. So this square here is roughly 1,000 feet by 1,000 feet. This is where your site's going to be. Like I said, I didn't include that nature center So we can ignore that. We're just looking at the site as a blank slate. It is oriented north-south, east-west. So north is up, south is down, right? And we have our east and west as would be traditional compass points. So east would be over here, west would be over here. The sun is going to rise over here and come around and set over here. The arc is going to go toward the south. Our best light is going to come in from the north, so big windows in the north are great. That also happens to be the direction that has the really nice view, so we can take advantage of that as well. These contours are at 1 foot intervals, so every one of these steps up by 1 foot. The lowest part is up here at the top, so it's actually sloping away from us. So from south to north, it's going downhill. The highest point in this whole drawing is up here in the lower right corner, and so everything else is sloping downward. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? I just want to kind of emphasize that, that everything's sloping down. So where you choose to draw is fine. This set of hoops that run right along here is the river. So planting your building right smack in the middle of the river, probably not the right strategy. Though you could create a building that was a bridge and went across the river went underneath if you wanted to. You just have to think through what that building would look like. Those are the things that in architecture school you love to do, and then you get out into the real world and you realize that there's environmental impact studies and stream environment zones, and don't you dare touch the frogs that live in the stream and that kind of stuff. So if you want to do that kind of thing now's the time to do it, because you can get away with it. Once we start drawing, you're going to find that these are really a lot smaller than you think, the buildings. So you're going to end up zoomed way in. If your building takes up this whole thing, it's too big. So it's supposed to be small. Okay, up here at my top ribbon under the layers section, there are two different layers. There's layer 0 and there's layer topography. I want to make sure that the active current layer is layer 0, so I'll click on this drop down here and switch over to layer 0. There it is. Furthermore, on this drop down, once I've switched to layer 0, on the topography layer, I'm going to click this little lock icon. And that lock icon will turn the topography layer gray and will also not allow me to select it anymore. Or excuse me, I can select it, but I can't delete it. So I want you to do that so you're not stressing out about the topography. If the topography is just too much to handle and you don't feel like looking at the topography, it's flat enough for you to get away with not paying too much attention to it if you want to, unless you're building over here where it's really steep. In which case you can click the little light bulb or click the little sun. I'll explain the difference of those later on in the class or in the days to come. Either one of those will turn off the layer and make it go away, and then you can draw on your own. I'm going to leave it on for right now. I am on layer 0, and it's time to start drawing. So just in terms of getting a size, for example, I said that on the handout here, my living space was 200 feet. So in terms of understanding what 200 square feet is, it would be 10 by 20, for example. So I could do a rectangle at 20 feet, 10 feet, and that would give me an idea of what those 200 square feet were. Like I said, it's small. That's why I'm going to draw that. Truthfully, 10-foot wide living room is not the best. So it would probably end up needing to be a little bit bigger. So I might do something more like 15 by 15. Oops, sorry. There we go, rectangle at 15 feet, 15 feet. There we go. And as I start to draw these, if I want to double check my measurements, okay, how many square feet is this? I could certainly do 15 times 15 and use a calculator. But AutoCAD also has built-in measurement tools. So as we look at this home ribbon, on the right side, there's a measure button. That's just a straight measurement. But hidden underneath that, if I were to click the little downward arrow, I can actually measure area. So there's a button for area, and I could walk my way around this shape like that. When I'm done, I'll press Enter, and it's going to tell me how many square inches and how many square feet. So 15 by 15 is 225 square feet. So it's a little over what I wanted. That's OK. I could shrink one of these down a little bit. I could change dimensions. I could borrow space from something else. You get the idea. So that can help you figure out your general space. Now, one of the things that people do when they're working on drawing a floor plan, and this isn't necessarily the best strategy, but a lot of times people, to understand what these spaces are, is they go ahead and they create these boxes that represent general space. So you might do a box for a bedroom, a box for a bathroom, a box for the living space, a box for the kitchen, and you kind of start to play around with those. What I would encourage you to do besides that, however, is to actually think about what the relationship is to space. Have you been in a kitchen before that's open to a living space that you really liked? Have you lived in a space like that? Have you visited a hotel room that has a good space in it? Think about experiential spaces that you've been in and base your design on those kinds of experiential spaces. That's far better than just arranging blocks and gluing them together. What happens when you arrange blocks is, okay, I have this as a living space. I create my bedroom, I don't know, let's say at 12 feet, 12 feet. And I needed a second bedroom. There's my second bedroom. I need a bathroom. We'll say at 5, 8, 8. There's a bathroom. And I had a living space, or I had a kitchen. It was at 10 feet, 20 feet. I'm just quickly running through some of these things. I forget what my dining space, 150 at 15 feet, 10 feet. OK, so I've made these boxes that roughly represent what all these spaces are. And so people end up saying, oh, well, let me just put these together. So I'll put this one over here. This kind of lines up nice. We'll put that there. And maybe we'll put this one here. And we'll stick this over here. Oh, and this one kind of works nice. We'll put this one right like this. Yeah, that's pretty good. And we'll stick this one right over here. Awesome. I got my floor plan. Now, there's a problem here. You haven't thought about what the space feels like to be in. Does it work? Do I have the correct square footages? Absolutely. But what does this building feel like to be in? OK, well, I have my living space here. And they requested a living space that was open to the kitchen. Well, I just have this little tiny doorway into the kitchen. And it's kind of this long, skinny kitchen. What does that feel like to be in? Do I want to be in the kitchen? Do I want to share the living space? Not really. Oh, wait, I glued this bedroom on the side of the living space. Well, how does that feel? Oh, man, I woke up in the middle of the night and I really got to pee. Oh, well, I got to walk through the living space over to the bathroom, which is on the other side. So you want to think about what is it like to be in the space, and how does that experience help you figure it out? So if I were thinking about that, I might arrange this completely differently. I might say, you know what? I want this kitchen to share this big wall. And I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to put an island right there in the center. It's going to be wide open. Furthermore, I want my dining room to share that. So these three spaces are all wide open, and maybe they don't even have walls. And they're all one big open space. But I want my bedrooms to be private, so maybe I make a separate little wing over here connected by a hallway, such that these are, let's pull this over by, I don't know, 5 feet. And let's pull this one over like that. And then these end up connecting together by a little bridge, for example. This is thinking more about the space. This is thinking about, I want to have a bedroom wing that's separate from the living space wing, and they have this little bridge between, and I'm going to make that all glass, so you have to walk through that and have this experience of what it's like to be in nature, because it's kind of like camping. You develop these themes and these ideas in your head. This doesn't mean by any means that this is the right floor plan. I'm just showing you the design process. And so you're thinking about this. What happens if I took this kitchen and I moved it forward so that it was more up here, and this space out here became an exterior deck? So that was outside, and you could open up this, and there was just a post in the corner. You could open up a door here. You could open this wide open, and it lived out to this big deck. Those are the kinds of things that you want to think through as you're creating this floor plan, not just, I satisfied the square footage requirements. Think about the dimensions of your spaces. So for example, the living room. The first one that I did was 10 feet by 20 feet. It's really long and skinny. Think about this room that we're in. This is a really long, skinny room. Is this a good room or a bad room? What does it feel like to be in this room? You guys are all at this end of the room, and that end is vacant. It's like where the echoes go to die. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? If this were a living room, much smaller scale, and you were at one end and somebody else was at the far end, how would that feel? Would you have to yell across the room to try to get somebody's attention? At some point, the proportions get really wonky. Right? I could have a living room that was 200 square feet that was 5 feet wide and 40 feet long. Is that a usable space? Not at all. So think about those kinds of things as you're starting to design this building. If you're really starting to get into this, you also want to think about experientially what it's like to stand in the space and how tall the ceilings are going to be. We'll cover that when we get to elevations, though. So right now I want you to concentrate on the floor plan. I think floor plans are the most accessible way for you guys to start drawing. Okay? So I'm going to turn you guys loose. This, by the way, is approximately the size of the building you're going to be creating. If I were to zoom out, you can see how small it is. That's the way it should be. I could go in and double check the square footage of this space. Remember, I can use my utilities with measure here, and I could say, okay, let's see how big this space really is. And I'll work my way around this. Like that. And there I am at 943 square feet. So about right. Remember, the exterior space doesn't count. So that was just how I created it. And it was just a quick way of doing it. Like I said, it's by no means you shouldn't just copy this idea. It's just what came up in my head while I was doing it. Okay? So I want you to take the rest of the time today, and I'm purposely giving you a lot of time. So you guys have like 2.5 hours to work. Get as far as you can with this floor plan. The key here is that you want to make sure you have a very polished floor plan. You've thought through a lot of stuff so that when we come in next class, you can actually start to work with it. We're going to put furniture in. We're going to put, I think that's next class. We'll put flooring in. We'll make it look good as a floor plan rather than just a few sets of lines. We'll add line weights. We'll change layers, etc. So all of that stuff becomes important next class. If you're still trying to just draw the floor plan by next class, you'll be behind. Does that make sense? So I want you to spend the time. I'm giving you the time. Now's the time to do it. And then it'll be easier next class because we can focus on something else. Okay, so are there any questions about what's going on here? No, not so far. That's good. Use your time wisely today. Hopefully it's helpful to have that time. And I'll see you guys on Halloween.